All right, everyone, it's time for a gentlemanly refutation of some of the things that Cernovich has been saying like now. I subscribe to him, and I think he's spoken of me too. I like a lot of his content, but I've got to take slight offense to something that he's been saying. Which he made a couple of tweets the other day on the topic. He was talking about the Covington kids, and he invoked sort of Christianity and Islam. He's like, oh, anyone bashing Islam, it's like I'm laughing out loud at you. In an Islamic country, would you have had the Covington case? Basically, in I guess the inference that if it were an Islamic group, they wouldn't have backed down. Like Covington, the school would have said, "Oh, fuck yourself," basically, when their students were defamed by the lamestream media. And then he talks about actually, I think I can't remember the name, but there's like that 10-year-old kid or whatever that does drag queen stuff. And it's like really weird, and it is child exploitation. I think that needs to be looked into. It's totally improper the way that's being, what is it, lactation or some stupid shit like that. It's like, live your dream, but I have a feeling your parents are helping put you up to it a little bit. Just saying, I'm not making any allegations, but it's a little bit of an odd scenario. And so he's like saying basically, well, this wouldn't happen in an Islamic country. What we need is to make basically maybe a moderated version of Islam, an altered version. We import that here, we wouldn't have these problems. If you look at certain parts of the Islamic world, you see decadence beginning to happen, similar things. If you look at the Christian world, you can find plenty of Christian nations that don't have these problems. Why? It's because of economic and cultural decadence. That is, the Western world, the developed world where decadence has begun to set in tends to overlap with Christianity. That doesn't say bad things, by the way, about Christianity. Many parts of the Islamic world that are even developing only really began to develop in the wake of the 70s and 80s. So the new reliance on oil is a post-World War II facet. It hasn't even been a century. Meanwhile, the rest of the world, they're like, okay, we take your oil, basically, now we're building nuclear reactors. And so there's a little bit of a lopsided scenario where you have Islam being practiced, most of its adherents still live in parts of the world that are underdeveloped. Most Christians do not. Most Christians live in what we call the first world. They're in Europe, the United States, certain parts of Latin America. Now that's beginning to change. Christianity is rising up very, very swiftly in parts of Africa. It's becoming much more religious. Those countries are underdeveloped and don't have a decadence problem. If something like this were to happen in Nigeria, do you think that just because they were Christians, they would have backed off? I mean, the Covington case? No. And people there, I mean, there's arguably too much religion in some of these Christian countries. You know, they're still stoning homosexuals and, you know, stuff like that. Or killing kids with epilepsy for witchcraft and stuff like that. Now, meanwhile, there are parts of the Islamic world that are more liberal. It's not a function of religion. It's like if you're worried about child exploitation, to invoke Islam of all religions, confusing to me a little bit for cultural reasons, not because of the dogma itself necessarily, but because of culture. And that's the other thing. You're not looking at religion for what it really is. Religion is, one part of it is the dogma itself. If you took it literally, what's it teaching? Another is how is it able to be interpreted? Insofar as there are any contradictions in the dogma, there's any wiggle room at all, something's not quite cut and dry, there are multiple takes in the same story, like how many angels at the tomb of Jesus or whatever. Insofar as that goes, how can it be interpreted? Number 3, how is it interpreted? How is it actually pragmatically, physically practiced by adherents throughout their various cultural enclaves that practice it? Like if we look at Islam, there's going to be a big difference because of cultural and political reasons and economic reasons between the way it's practiced by a liberal family in Damascus and a tribe of people that don't have any electricity out in the middle of Afghanistan. There's going to be a huge difference. If you're trying, by the way, to take Islam and change it around for Western purposes, the fact that you've changed it means you'd be fitting it in with the decadence and so-called degeneracy that you see. And some of it is, you know, when I look at the Covington case, I just say, oh, it's a case of basically this Catholic body didn't want to be dragged over the coals and end up fucked. They threw the kids under the bus because they're stupid. The bishop was stupid, should be relieved of his duties. That has nothing to do with Catholicism at large, though. There would have been Catholic groups that probably would have defended the kids, said, hey, jury's still out on what's even happened here. Back the fuck off. These are a bunch of high schoolers. By the way, they're really, really lucky there in the Covington diocese that these kids aren't bad people like the media said, because then they'd be suing the diocese just to get a lot of money. They said, oh, this would be great. You know, my college is definitely going to be free. I'm going to be a millionaire, say these kids, because of all the defamation cases. They're lucky that they're respectful young men. And as far as, like, you know, the kid drag queen stuff, yeah, I would say that's degenerated. Yeah, I would agree with you there. It's not Christianity that caused that. Yes, I'm sure that they go to church every Sunday without fail. No, I think that's the result of cultural degeneracy. Like, you look around the world, there are so many different religions. You have some nations that aren't Christian at all and have the same kind of cultural problems, the same cultural confusion, social alienation I chalk it up to. We're in the middle of a massive double paradigm shift. We've got several socially alienated political enclaves in the country. Yeah, you're going to see some weird shit. By the way, this has happened before. This happened back at the dawn of the 20th century. Hell, they were even more... the rise of social... People talk about socialism and degeneracy and modern art and stuff. Dude, look up the fucking 1910s. Look up the 1920s. Was it not the exact same thing? Oh my god, flappers. Oh my god, someone had sex before marriage. Dadaism, this art means nothing. Oh, social alienation. Economic problems. Turmoil. Political upheaval. 30% of the country supporting socialism. Way more than supports it now. Yeah, no, if you want a period of cultural insanity, you go back 100 years to your great-grandparents' time. I'm not going to sit here and worry too much. So Cernovich, I like a lot of his content, but he's flat out wrong. No, importing Islam to the West would not solve the problem of cultural alienation or anything like that. It certainly isn't going to solve the problem of sometimes some group gets backed down by a lynch mob, which is basically what happened in Covington, and turns tail and runs away and abandons, students or someone else it's supposed to defend. It happens in power structures all the time. They don't need to be Christians for it to occur. So I'd say I would debate the point. I would think that, no, your summation is not correct. That's about all. Peace out.